this series of 4 videos. Today's video is going to be an overview of gastrointestinal function first, so we really understand what's happening with your digestive system and how that actually works. To the next video, we'll cover the microbiome, which is an area that's becoming increasingly important um, in health research, and is really becoming the knowledge around that is really expanding exponentially at the moment. The third video will be about barrier function. This is really the idea that your gut has to stop certain things getting into your system, but it also has to allow certain things in. So you need to absorb nutrients and those sorts of things from your gut, whilst at the same time keeping pathogens and other unwanted things out of your body. So we're going to talk about that barrier function and really its relationship to immune function and perhaps food sensitivities as well. And then the fourth one of this series, we will be looking into nutrition and food. So actually this is probably the most important thing in many ways. I mean, if you're looking at digestion, what you put in really matters. But we're going to leave it to the end so we have a really good understanding of how everything works first, and then we'll come back and look at food and nutrition in the last video of this series. Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. This is the Rowe Health channel. My name's Owen Rowe. I'm a doctor of chiropractic and a certified functional medicine practitioner, and we work in West Cork in Ireland, and we help people with chronic health conditions. Let's just get straight into it. So here we go. We're going to have an overview of your digestive system or your gastrointestinal system, and we're going to walk down through it from a top to bottom sequence. Okay, so right, let's start. We can see here, so the first thing actually when you think about is actually your brain is involved in digestion, and that might seem a little bit strange, but it is. You have obviously feelings of hunger, and these will make you want to eat. Now this is a neurological part of the system. This is involved with hormones and neuroendocrine system activating on your brain, making you want to eat. The brain communicates with the gut via the vagus nerve, and this is an important sort of signaling pathway that will get your body ready to receive food. So the full extent of how this happens is not completely understood as yet, and there's lots of research going into that at the moment, but it most certainly is involved. Now, the next stage we want to talk about is really, obviously food comes into your mouth, and the first stage of digestion is really chewing, and cutting that food up with your teeth into smaller sizes, and then you are mixing that at the same time with saliva, which starts the digestion process. Now there's other functions that are happening here as well. There's also neuroendocrine signaling pathways coming down from your mouth and into your gut, readying for certain enzymes and food enzymes to be released to help you break down the food and get that in. Okay, so we're not going to go madly into detail on that, but there is other functions happening here as well. But this chewing function is really important. You should be chewing your food. I have to make a conscious effort to do it, but you should chew your food. You want it, they say, sort of 20 to 30 times per mouthful. Okay, so we've done the chewing of the food. We've broken it down with our teeth. We've mixed it with saliva. The next stage is for it to come down the esophagus and into the stomach. Now your stomach is like a balloon, and it holds within the stomach there are cells that release stomach acid and paresal cells, and there's other intrinsic factors that are released into this stomach juice that helps you to break down food. Now this is very acidic. It's pH of about 1 to 3. So it's a really very acidic environment in the stomach. And this acidity is absolutely important to break down proteins and also to help you absorb certain nutrients. Intrinsic factor, for example, to absorb B12, but other nutrients that you need to absorb from your food need this level of acidity to break it down so that you can actually absorb them. Now, this acidity within the stomach is incredibly important. It's like part of a reaction that will, the level of acidity that will knock on to all other functions within the gut. So you need a certain level of acidity in there, and once that food is broken down enough and that acid is actually left into the small intestine, okay, in the duodenum first, that acidity will then kick off a whole lot of cascade of other functions that we're going to talk about in a minute, from the gallbladder to the pancreatic enzymes to the small intestine function and the colon, and eventually excreting out. Okay, so without that acidity, you will have a diminished gut function throughout. So once your food has mixed with the stomach acid and it's broken down to a certain level, it then gets released into the duodenum in the small intestine. And here it is, we're going to talk about two things. So we'll come back to the small intestine and the large intestine later, where it's involved in absorption of nutrients. But we're going to talk about some other areas at the moment. So we've got the liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas. And we're going to talk about those two first. So the main function of the liver with regards to digestion is really to provide bile, which is stored in your gallbladder. And the bile is then released to mix with the food. And bile is very, very important for the absorption, or for the breakdown of fats and conjugate fats, to allow you to absorb them back into the body again. The liver does have a role in other factors to do with energy and metabolism, and also to do with the excretion of chemicals and toxins from the body. But that's not strictly digestion. So for the moment, we're just going to talk about bile and getting into the gallbladder. So when this acidic stomach juices release into the duodenum, it actually initiates the gallbladder to squeeze the bile into the duodenum, and then it mixes with the food there and helps to break down fat. Likewise, there are enzymes released from the pancreas, and they are pancreatic enzymes, or pancreatic juices, are released again and these also help with further breakdown of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Now, the pancreas also has a really fundamental role in how we handle blood sugars and things like that. So, it's also releasing hormones, insulin and glucagon, which help us to manage the blood sugars after we've actually digested them. So it's got numerous roles there as well, but in terms of digestive role, it releases enzymes. So once all this lot is released into the small intestine, and the small intestine is sort of moving, it's got certain motility to it, and this is mixing and changing things around and pushing things together and pushing things through your gut, and eventually obviously you want them to push them right out and you're going to excrete them in feces once you've absorbed all the nutrients out of them. And this is really the main role of the small intestine and the large intestine. So the small intestine is divided into three areas, and they all do slightly different things. They're written on the board there. I'm not going to go into each one now, but basically different areas absorb certain things. And the small intestine is really majorly important, sort of absorbing certain short-chain fatty acids, B12s. It will also be involved in absorbing of the fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K, and other nutrients. In fact, the main bulk of nutrition comes in through the small intestine. And the small intestine is really, really huge. It's about 3 times your height. So it's about 7 meters. It's actually a bit more than that. It's about 7 meters long in average human. So it's a long organ, and it's wrapped around inside you, round and round and round, and it's got quite a convoluted path. And then it joins into what's called the colon, or the large intestine. And the large intestine is larger. It's bigger diameter. It's not as long. It's about 1.5 meters long. And this is basically the main function that happens in the colon, is that you absorb water and you absorb electrolytes from that. Now, electrolytes are just dissolved salts like magnesiums and calciums and potassiums and things that you require for your body to function really well. So these are all absorbed in the large intestine, as are short-chain fatty acids again. And the other function that really happens mainly in the colon is to do with breakdown of fibers and fermentation. And this is done by healthy gut bacteria, and this is generally be known as the microbiome. And this is fundamentally important for our ability to convert certain foodstuffs into things that we need, to convert certain vitamins that we require, and also more modern research showing that that actually has endocrine functions for the body, Microbiome is really important for the maintenance of blood sugar levels, so insulin resistance, and therefore the development of diabetes and that sort of thing. So really important part, and we are going to get to that in the section. We're going to have a whole section on the microbiome in the second video we do in this series. So we will get to that, but just an overview. This is the large intestine is where the main bulk of bacteria live. There are absolutely bacteria in your small intestine, but the numbers are significantly less. I mean, they're still in the billions, but they're much less than the billions that are in the large intestine, if that makes any sense. There's just a huge number more in the large intestine. And eventually, once obviously we've taken as much water and nutrition as we can out of our stool or out of our food, we obviously excrete that in the toilet as a stool. Okay, so that's a basic overview of the major functions as we go through the gastrointestinal system. So we start off obviously with chewing, mixing that with saliva. We swallow that, it enters into our stomach, it mixes with stomach acid, this breaks down proteins and allows us to absorb other certain nutrients. That then gets released into the small intestine, where bile, which is produced by the liver and stored in the gallbladder, is mixed with the food. The pancreas also releases digestive juices into that, mixes it all up, helps with it aids with breakdown so that we can actually digest the portions of the food that we need. And then our food makes its way through the small intestine as it does, absorbing certain nutrients, and then finally into the colon, where we're absorbing water, short chain fatty acids, and the bacteria are really doing their job, helping us to convert other foods and other factors as we go. So hope you've got something from that quick overview of everything. We're going to go, so this is, as I said, this is the first in a series of 4. This is an overview. The second one's going to be the microbiome. The third one will be barrier function, and we will talk about immune function in that one, and food allergies or food sensitivities and intolerances, and go through what the differences of those are. And in the fourth one, we're going to talk about food and nutrition. So if you found this useful, please subscribe to this channel. You will find a link on the screen somewhere here. I'm not sure where it's going to be, and just hit subscribe, and keep abreast of all the updated videos we're going to be putting up. Thanks again. Bye bye.